Well, going back to 1939, of course, that was when the war broke out on the 3rd of September 1939. I was tender age of 19 then, and I was working in Birmingham. At first, I was in a reserved occupation. I was in the civil service, and they retained a certain number of staff. But eventually, in 1941, I was, well, in the meantime, of course, there was the Blitz on Birmingham. I was in the Blitz of Birmingham. I joined the LDV, which was the Local Defence Volunteers, which later became the Home Guard. And we used to do nighttime guards out at Erdington Airport, which was a major airport of Birmingham in those days. And of course I was also a member of the office team who had to do fire watch duty in the city centre during the German bombing raids. We were in a 5-story building in the centre, and the procedure was usually that when a raid occurred, you were up on the roof, because the first thing that the German bombers did was to drop incendiary bombs to light up their target. And it was terrifying, really, but of course they weren't terribly explosive, so they were very hot, as you know. Of course we had buckets of sand and shovels and heaven knows what else, and what we used to do, of course, is if one happened to fall on the flat roof, we tried to shovel it over the side if we could, or douse it, try to put sufficient sand on it to stop it burning through.
Yeah.
And of course, but as soon as the wave of incendiary bombers had gone, then the following bombers carried high explosive, and the roof was the worst place we could be. So we sort of, after the initial German run, we used to dive down to the basement very, very quickly, because you could guarantee the high explosive was coming down there. It was terrifying. In fact, that period in Birmingham during the Blitz was probably the worst period I had during the war. I wasn't in the services at all. Of course, I mean, the following morning you tried to get back home, or back to my digs, and it was, the streets were just a maze of rubble, fire appliances, firemen's hoses, all over the place. You know, it was a terrible, terrible mess.
How old were you when all this happened?
I was 20 then. 1940 they started the bombing raid, so I was 20 then.
Could you see the bombers, or?
I only had one that was terribly near me, and that was when I was walking home one evening, and I couldn't have been on duty, but I was walking back to my digs, which was in the northern part of Birmingham, and a bomb exploded just the other side of a wall by the church, by Erdington Church. It fell down. Well, fortunately there was a very high wall there which actually protected me from the blast, so I escaped that one all right, and that's probably the nearest I came to being clobbered, you know.
Yeah.
It's certainly terrifying, and as I say, that was probably the worst period of the war as far as I was concerned. Anyway, in 1941 I was called. You had to have a medical examination to start off with, so I think it was about April and May of 41 that I was called for a medical, and I was eventually called up in the August of 41. I was given a choice of which services I went into, Army, Navy or Air Force, and I chose the Air Force. Don't know why, but I did. And I was drafted to a place called Padgate, which is up near Liverpool, where I was kitted out and all the rest of it, and officially inducted into the services. And I was then transferred to Blackpool, Padgate we were in billets and in huts, you know, but in Blackpool we were in private houses. All the landladies opened their houses to servicemen in Blackpool, and we did our initial square bashing, as we called it. That was the military drill, round the back streets of Blackpool for about 6 weeks, I should say, something like that. Yeah. And then I was during also in addition to the training, we had lessons in. We had to learn the Morse code because I elected to be in the signal section of the RAF. So there, I mean, we didn't have things. We didn't have sort of a lot of the radio telephone service didn't carry over a long distance then. So for your communications, you used Morse code. Yeah. So we had to learn Morse code, and we had to not only learn it, we had to learn different codes that were used for secrecy purposes, and also we had to learn to operate at speed. And you had to achieve at least 40 words a minute with Morse code to pass the exam. That's where we had our initiation. Then I went down to Compton Bassett in Wiltshire, where there was another training establishment, and that taught me how to do direction finding, which was essential because that was the way in which they gave the aircraft pilots a course to return to their base when they were over Germany. And it was very important because a lot of them had bits of the aircraft shot away by the German anti-aircraft fire and so forth. So they were limping along, and they were glad of any assistance to get back to either this country or their actual base. And we had to learn how to give them directions by Morse code, that was.
Yeah.
So that was Compton Bassett. Then I was drafted to an RAF station at Honeybourne in Worcestershire, and that was what was called an OTU, which was an operational training unit, where they had Wellingtons. I forget the name of these things now. The old black square one we used to call flying coffins, big square wings to it. Whitley Bombers that we had there. Of course now, I mean, they're as old as the hills now, but they trundled along, you know, and we used to call them flying coffins. They were always painted black because they did night flying, you see, and that was the colour they used it black for concealment, camouflage, and they looked horrible. They had square fuselage and square wings. Anyway, that was a training unit, and I was drafted to the signal section there. Now, being on direction finding, they didn't sight us on the airfield itself because of interference, electrical interference. So we had a little hut about 2 miles outside the airfield, where we had all our equipment. And of course, it wasn't small equipment that you get these days. The radio receiver and transmitter before you sat was a huge thing. It was a huge piece of machinery.
Yeah.
And we sort of used that. Of course, although this was an operational training unit, what happened was, of course, that in the bombing raids over Germany and elsewhere, they used to draw on pilots and aircraft from the training unit to go across because they obviously had to have training in operational duties. Yeah. So we were virtually an operational station there, and our little hut outside, we were privileged really, of course, because we sort of didn't come under a lot of the discipline of the RAF station itself, so we could sort of please ourselves more or less what we did. Worked on shifts, of course, but it was lovely there because we drew rations from the cookhouse and we cooked our own meals out there on shift, you see. We used to pick mushrooms out of the field and fry them and all sorts of things like that. But it was, of course, quite a serious job because on duty you were sitting in front of this huge transmitter and receiver, and you had in front of you lots of switches and whatnot, and the main piece of equipment was what was called a goniometer, and that was a big dial all with degrees all the way round it, and a central knob with a pointer on, and you swung that round, which told you the direction from which you were receiving the signal from the aircraft. And you had headphones on, and the sound, the outside aerial system was four aerials at 4 points round the little hut, and a central aerial as well. And when you were obtaining a bearing for an aircraft, what you did was you asked him to transmit on his transmitter, and what he did was and actually hold the Morse key down, so you got a continuous signal. And then you would swing your goniometer until you got a position where the sound dropped. And so that gave you either where he was or the reciprocal, one or the other. And to determine the actual direction, what you did, you switched in the central aerial, which gave your sound pattern a heart sound pattern. So you found the dip in the heart, and that was the true position. But it wasn't accurate enough to give a proper bearing. So once you'd found the direction, you went back to your four aerials, which was a figure of 8 sound pattern, and gave an accurate figure for the centre of it, you see. So that was the way we found the directions. And of course, they used to call us up with various priority signals and so forth, which we had to learn off by heart. And we had to learn to pick up the one that we thought was in most desperate need first.
Yeah.
And that was often very difficult. But it was a very, very traumatic sort of job. But that's where I was during quite a lot of the war. I was transferred from there to Oakington in Cambridgeshire. I did a little spell there. That was on the same job. Then they transferred me to Swannington in Norfolk. And that was funny because when we got there, we found that there were no bomber aircraft there. They were all fighter aircraft, and they didn't use us at all. So we were kicking our heels for about 4 weeks there, doing nothing. And so they pushed us back to Oakington again. And from there, the end of the war in Europe was in 1945, early 1945. But the war in Burma was still going on, so they transferred a lot of troops and service personnel out to that area, and I was sent out to India in the April, May, I think it was the June of 1945, where the war had finished in Europe, but it was still going on out there, you see. So I was transferred to India, and I did 12 months in India until August 1946. So by the time, and then I came back into this country to Liverpool. I was demobbed and so forth, and back in civilian life in 1946. I was 26 then. So you can see that I had a 5 year slice took out of my life by the effect of the war.
Yeah.
So I mean, young people today in that age group are really lucky, because we've had peace in our time for such a long time now. People sort of just don't have that problem.
Yeah.
But it's all the chaps who went through the war. They really lost so many years of their lives, you know.
Yeah.
If they weren't killed, then they lost all the enjoyment they could have had during that period. Mind you, that doesn't mean to say that we were miserable all the time we were in the services. I mean, we had a lot of entertainment, you know. I mean, the entertainment industry went to great lengths to keep us entertained. Anyway.
Do you remember hearing Winston Churchill on the radio?
Yes, oh yes, and in particular, of course, I mean, everybody remembers Chamberlain's speech when the war broke out. That's a historic speech on the 3rd of September. And Churchill many times, yes, on the radio. Of course, radio in those days was a bit of a problem, and the ordinary household didn't have the radios that you have today.
Yeah.
And I remember at home, we started off with a radio where to get any signal at all, you had to have a crystal with a little wire to put on to pick out the point on the crystal where you could get a reception. Now that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any more questions you'd like to ask me?
Can you remember any specific bombers returning home?
Not specific ones. No, I wouldn't. I couldn't name any particular. Well, I mean, I was dealing mostly. They were, as I say, the Lancasters, Whitleys, and you know, that type of bomber. But well, they all had their names, of course. I mean, you used to the air crew used to give their bombers names.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember any of those.
Do you remember D-Day?
Not specifically. It didn't create any great impression on me. I was at Oakington in Cambridgeshire, and it was sort of a routine day, you might say, you know.
Yeah. The AA guns helped by inspiring you at all?
AA guns, the anti-aircraft guns, well, they were all over the place. So the airfields had quite a few of them, but of course they were in the towns as well. I mean, in Birmingham, when I was in the Blitz there, I mean, there was more noise from the anti-aircraft guns than from the aircraft.
How did rations affect you?
Rationing, well, of course, in the services we weren't affected very much by rationing at all. We sort of accepted. I mean, our diet was a bit limited, I suppose, but when we came out of the services in the post-war period, from 1947 onwards, well, life was quite difficult then because you had a ration book, and you had to have coupons for meat, coupons for cheese, and all the rest of it. You see, and you were only allowed so many ounces, so that it was difficult.
Yeah.
I think families came off better. I think because if you got a family, you could sort of manage more, because perhaps certain members of the family didn't like it. Perhaps they didn't like cheese or something like that, so that ration would go to the brothers and sisters, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But rationing was a problem for a good many years.
Did you suffer any family or friend tragedies?
No, not family. Well, not close family anyway. Friends, well, we lost one or two. I couldn't really say that was the case, because I was never flying, so I was on ground staff all the time. As a result of that, there were not a great deal of casualties in the places that I was in. We had the occasional German fighter that would come over and strafe the airfield, but nothing that sort of really affected me in that way, no.
What actions would you have changed if you got to relive it again?
What would I change? Or do you mean sort of nationally or personally, or
personally, if you could?
what I would change. That's a difficult one to answer because you've got to do as you're told in a wartime, you know.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance of saying you like this and you like that. It's to be done, and that's that, you know.
Yeah.
I can't. That's difficult to answer that one, Jack.
What was your funniest memory?
Funniest moment? I don't know. We had some fun out in India, I can tell you that. We, of course, out in India we were in sort of little huts, about what 20, 30 to a hut, you know, and all the work out there was done by the Indian boys. They did everything. They swept out the huts, they cleaned this, and they brought you round your tea and your buns, and we treated them like dirt, actually. And some of the lads, some of the men were worse than others. You know, the Indians were a sort of a repressed sort of nation, if you know what I mean. It was their job to serve the British soldiers.
Yeah.
And they had to do it. Mind you, they didn't mind. It was their way of life. They were quite happy. But we had, I can't sort of say any specific amusing incidents, but we used to sort of make fun of the Indian boys and call them all sorts of different names and so forth. So, you know, and I think probably I think I enjoyed that time out in India more than any of the other during the services. Principally, of course, because there was a light at the end of the tunnel. The war in Europe had stopped, and so there was a prospect of peace, you see.
Yeah. And
that made everybody's heart a lot lighter.
Where in India were you stationed?
I was stationed at a place called Nagpur, Nagpur, which is in the central provinces. It's about halfway. It's at the halfway post between Bombay, which is now called something else, and Burma. And our job, it was what is called a staging post, and aircraft used to land at Bombay, and then they had to come from Bombay to Burma, which is an awful long way.
Yeah. And
they stopped at Nagpur for refueling. And the air crews had a rest sometimes and so forth, and it's often they were armed there with their bombs and whatnot, you know. So we were the sort of halfway point between Bombay, which was the sort of entrance to India, and Burma fighting.
Yeah.
Very hot there. Very, very hot.
What sort of problems did the bombers have trying to get back?
What sort of problems? What
did the bombers have trying to get back?
The bombers?
Yeah.
All sorts of problems. After they'd done a bombing raid across Germany, I mean, they were coming back with bits of the wing shot away and bits of their tails shot away. And often, you know, a couple of the crew dead, and you know, that sort of thing. It was some dreadful things, you know, and some of them often they got back over this country safely and then crashed on landing. So you know, it was a traumatic period.